Greetings and welcome to whichever of my classes you signed up for. My name is Rich. I decided to make this little video to go over some of the basics of how my classes work in an effort to help us get to know each other a little better, especially if you're just doing a fully online class. So welcome. A little bit about me. I have experience working in networking and security and Linux type work. I worked in the real world for, you know, 8 years or so before I came to Hack. And while I've been at Hack, I've still been doing some consulting here and there. So I still have opportunity to get my hands on technology on a regular basis. So I still know what's going on. I'll tell you a little bit about my teaching philosophy. My goal is to make you competent and employable. I want you to know how to do the things we are learning how to do in this class. So if when this class is over, you should be competent in the topic that we're learning. A lot of people think my classes are hard, maybe. I don't know. I don't think they're hard, but I will not lie to you. They are a lot of work. If you don't like working hard, you will find them to be hard. It is not real feasible for you to put in 2 or 3 hours a week, one day a week, and be successful in any of my classes. It requires more effort than that. What's the best advice I can give you to being successful in my classes? There are two things I'll tell you. Don't get behind. You need to finish each learning module on time. This isn't like a history class where if you completely blow off the American Revolution, that won't come back to haunt you when you're learning about the Civil War. Some classes, they're distinct modules that once you finish one module, you may not hear about that module again until the midterm or the final exam. That is not the case with the classes I teach. Classes I teach, the things we learn in week 1, we will be doing in week 2, and doing in week 3, and week 4, and week 5. An example of that is the Linux class. We start out learning how to navigate in the command line environment. We will be using the command line the entire semester. So if you blow off module 1, you have no idea how to change directories or copy files and do those basic tasks. Later on in the semester, when you need to actually use those command line skills to complete a task, you'll be lost and you won't be able to complete the higher level tasks because you never mastered the lower level tasks of being a competent command line user. So just don't get behind. The second advice I'll give you is to ask questions, particularly in an online class. I'll talk about podcasts in a minute, but there are tons of podcasts that show you pretty much how to do everything. And the materials I've made available are good enough for probably 75 to 85% of the students to complete everything without asking me any questions, completely on their own, without needing any help. I recognize that, and I recognize there are some number of students that will need help. And if you're one of those students, please ask for help. Not asking for help and not finishing the work is a quick way to fail. I had a conversation, or was part of a conversation with a student who thought her impression was the teacher should have saw that she was struggling and then asked her if she needed help or approached her and tried to help her. Well, that's not necessarily the way I feel. I feel that you're a college student. If you need help, you need to reach out and get help. Same thing when you get a job. If you get a job and you're assigned a task and you don't know how to do it, you need to go find your boss or a senior member to get some help from that person. So if you're waiting for me to detect that you're having problems and offer to help you, this is the offer right now. If you're having problems, ask for help. I'm ready to help you. I'm willing to help you. I want to help you be successful in this class. So the best way to get help is to start early so that you have time to ask for help and get help. Lots of times I have people working that don't start the assignment until the day it's due, especially in the online classes. And then they don't really have time to take in all the material that covers how they should be able to complete the task, and they don't really have time to send me questions and get answers because, hey, if you send me a question at 6 o'clock at night and it's due at 10, I'm generally pretty good about checking my email, especially on those kind of days. But there's a possibility that after 6 o'clock at night, you might not get an answer, so that's why you need to start early. So start early, don't get behind, ask questions. I mentioned podcast a minute ago. I have extensive usage of podcasts in my classes. Why is that? Well, online classes, that's really how you get the material from me. Blended classes, our time is best used working in the lab with the equipment, doing the activities, not with me spending hours talking to you. So I make a lot of podcasts so that you guys can consume the material outside of class, come in, we'll have a brief discussion about whatever we need to talk about. I'll answer questions, go over last week's lab, whatever we decide we need to do. And then we'll spend the most of the time working with the equipment in the lab if it's an in-class or blended class. So you need to watch the podcast. I want to mention one thing about the podcast. Things change over time. So when you're watching the podcast, they may or may not line up with exactly what we're doing this semester. And that's the case because I make the podcast. And then they're good enough for a while. But then over time, things change. So it gets to the point where I need to remake them. So a perfect example of that is a podcast I made for how to run a VM in VMware Player. So there's newer versions of VMware Player since I made that podcast. And I've also decided to distribute a different VM that's in a different format. So if you watch that podcast, or when you watch that podcast, it's not going to match up exactly with what you need to do. But it is close enough that you should be able to figure out what you need to do from that podcast. So that's a valuable skill to have in the IT field because many times you'll be searching the internet for a solution to a problem you're having, and you'll find something that's kind of close but not exactly, and then you need to be able to take that kind of close thing and try to apply it to your particular situation. So, like I said, I try to update podcasts enough when they get old enough that they are really out of date and not relevant. I just made some new ones that replace some podcasts that were from the old lab machines that were Windows XP. We've been using Windows 7 for a while, so I felt it was time to redo those. The content didn't really change that much, but I just redid them on the new operating system. So the point of that is most of the time the podcasts are pretty close, if not exact, but every now and then you may run into one that what you're looking at in the podcast doesn't match up 100% exactly with what you're doing, but you should be good enough in a 200 level CIS CNT class that you can connect the dots to figure out what you need to do. And if you can't, ask me a question, send me an email, let me know you don't think the podcast is good enough or accurate enough and I should consider redoing it, and we'll see what we can do to get that material updated either for this semester or for the next semester, so the next group of students won't have to deal with that same issue. So I think that's about it. Success, be successful, don't get behind, ask questions, get help if you need it, start early. If this is an online class, you can go ahead over to Module 1 and get started over there. If it's an in-class class, blended class, I'll see you the first day, and I guess that's it.